Hello, everybody. This is John Sider, your host for the Olympus Wealth Strategies podcast, where we help you take your finances to great heights. I've got a very special guest with us. And for anybody who is going to college, thinking about going to college, or you have kids or grandkids with the ambition of going on for higher education, this is certainly an episode that you want to tune into. So I've got a great guest in Jonathan Coleman on the podcast. And go ahead and give us a little intro about yourself.
Thank you. Thank you so much for having me on, John. I'm Jonathan Coleman. I am the Assistant Vice Chancellor for Enrollment Management, as well as the Director of Financial Aid and Scholarships at UALR. I've been in higher ed about 10 years. Most of that 10 years, actually all of that 10 years has been focused in financial aid and scholarships. How to help students and their families plan and afford college. It's gotten more and more expensive over the last few years. It's only going to continue. So planning, having the knowledge, knowing what to ask, those are all going to be more and more important over the next 20 years.
Like we were talking, you're from Little Rock, so working this job's kind of near and dear to helping your fellow Arkansans from Central Arkansas.
It absolutely is. I actually grew up on what is now part of campus.
Really?
It is actually home for me. My house that I grew up in is now part of campus. It is now student housing.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
You maybe can give us a little quick tour of the school, if you will. Yeah. Kind of what makes UALR unique, and kind of an affordability factor. I think a lot of us who live in Little Rock have probably seen the advertisements and certainly the billboards that preach about affordability, and maybe you can kind of give us a little update there.
Sure. So nothing you don't know, UA Little Rock Metropolitan University, we have about 6,000 undergraduate students right now. That's up from the last few years. We actually saw about 15 years of enrollment decline that we have turned completely around in the last 3 years. In 2022, we increased our freshman class by 30%. In 2024, we increased it by another 29.5%.
Wow.
We've seen huge growth in our freshman and transfer classes. And we've kind of done that on the backs of recruitment and affordability. We know college is expensive. We know that makes students nervous. We know that makes their families nervous. So what we wanted to do is we wanted to kind of put our money where our mouth is and say, let's find the money, let's raise the money to make school more affordable, whether that be from a marketing perspective or actually putting scholarship dollars out there. So what we did in fall of 2021 was we launched our first affordability campaign, which was half off tuition and fees. We guaranteed that every single incoming freshman would get 50% off tuition and fees. Community donors made it happen.
Wow.
But we guaranteed half off. It was valued at that time about $5,000. From 2001 to now, it's awarded over $6 million in scholarships to incoming freshmen and sophomores. It's good for 2 years. So that's been huge. But going into fall of 2023, we thought, I don't know that we're doing enough. Is there something else we can do? Something for those students that have more need? Maybe they need help with housing. Maybe they need help with books. What else can we do? Can we be more aggressive? A little bit in response to what other schools around the state were doing. So we launched the Trojan Guarantee. And what the Trojan Guarantee does is it guarantees that any student from Arkansas that is Pell eligible of any amount and receives the Arkansas Academic Challenge Scholarship, they will never pay tuition and fees at UA Little Rock. It will be a completely tuition and fee free bachelor's degree.
That's incredible.
It is awesome. It is a huge
really unheard
program. It is. And the good thing about our program is what we want to do. We wanted to make it as simple as possible, easy to explain, easy to understand. We didn't want a bunch of fine print. We didn't want it to be just a marketing thing. We wanted it to be what it was supposed to be. There's no income cutoff. As long as you're Pell eligible and a challenge recipient, you're eligible. There's no work requirement. There are some around the state that require students to have an on-campus job. There are some that require you to live on campus. We don't require freshmen to live on campus. Another cost-saving opportunity for local students. So all of those things kind of build up into what we've kind of found as our niche in the state of Arkansas. College is more affordable, so let's market. Let's talk to students and their families about how we can be more affordable. Over the last 7 or 8 years, since probably longer than that, 10, 12 years, we've gone from being the third most expensive four-year public school in the state of Arkansas to being the second most affordable. We've put a ton of effort into keeping tuition and fees flat as many years as possible, along with our enormous scholarship portfolio.
So with all this momentum that you've got going, you mentioned obviously initially in 2021, going out and raising it from donors and ultimately making that a big campaign. Is that sustainable for, future potential students, or is that ultimately going to sunset at some point?
We don't expect it to. As we've kind of seen how successful it's been, how important it is to students, because one of the things that we did during the pandemic was we started talking to students, listening to students more about what are you looking for in college. For years, probably when you went to college, when I went to college, it was where do I want to go to school and what do I want a degree in. That was it. Those were the factors. Now it's where can I afford to go? And that started in the pandemic, and that's continuing on. Students need to know where can I afford to go without taking out an astronomical amount of debt.
While still receiving a high quality education.
Exactly. And they can get that at UA Little Rock. And so as we've seen the success, that funding with our Centennial campaign through development, we expect this to be able to continue. We're doing the preparation as those large donations that we got 5 years ago, as those start to go away. We've planned ahead so we can continue these affordability campaigns.
And what's also incredible, at the same time as you've been able to find ways to lower the cost for students, you've been able to increase amenities for students on campus.
You have to.
Yep.
You have to. Students need support. Mm-hmm. Students need support. And one of the things that we've done a better job of is having the services and making sure they know that they're there. We're
one thing to have it, and another thing for them to actually be utilized, right?
Right. And one thing, when I started, I didn't think we did a very good job of making students aware of the services. And it's anything from tutoring to physical health, emotional health, mental health. We have counseling services on campus that's completely free to students. We have services that run the gambit for student support. They just need to know about it. And so now, instead of kind of reacting as students need those services, now at orientation, at recruitment events, we're talking to students about those services. We're talking to parents about counseling services, about the on-campus health center if their child is sick or gets injured. We're talking to them about tutoring, about police. Where you live in Little Rock, it has a terrible perception, but we have a state police. We have Department of Public Safety with cops, with patrol cars going around campus. All those things we're starting to push to students before they ever even show up on campus.
That's great. So let's maybe break down, we talk a lot about the ways you've saved, students money by the time they graduate. Let's maybe break down, whether it be UA Little Rock specific or just maybe in general, let's maybe break down the student's bill, from tuition, fees, room and board. I know you mentioned that's not a requirement for freshmen, which is huge. And maybe how can families best estimate the total cost before enrolling their child? So
the best thing to look at, there's a few things to know. There is actual charges, which comes from us at student accounts. But within financial aid, there's a term called cost of attendance.
Okay.
It is not exact charges, but it is an estimate of what it's going to cost the student to go to college. It costs money to drive to campus. There's an allotment for transportation. There's an allotment for tuition fees, food and housing, on campus, off campus. You're living with your parents. We have different allotments. And it essentially is an estimate of what it's going to cost to go to college. It changes every single year. It's based on undergraduate, graduate. So looking at that kind of thing is a really good opportunity to get an idea of not just what the tuition and fees are. Okay, well, what if I want to live on campus? We always say an engaged student is a successful student. Living on campus helps, but it's expensive. At UA Little Rock, it almost doubles the cost to live on campus. But if the student's more successful, is it worth it? So cost of attendance is a really good thing to look at. There are reports all over the internet on net price. Net price is a higher ed term this is tuition and fees. After scholarships and grants from the university are paid, this is what's left. That's when I talk about we're the second most affordable higher ed, public higher education in the state. That's based on our net price. There's a lot of different resources for families to go to find out where they think they're most comfortable affording. And we have a lot of great institutions in the state.
And that's a great point you made is college. I think everybody gets, engulfed in, tuition, fees, room and board. But there's just, like you alluded to, there's a lot more that goes into the total cost to ultimately graduate than just the tuition price that you see online.
And think about if, like for me, I lived in a dorm my freshman year. I lived in a fraternity house my sophomore year, and then lived in a house with buddies my junior and senior year. I probably never thought, now I got to pay for a water bill.
Yeah.
Now I got to pay for cable. All of those things go into what it costs to go to college, and those things probably get left out of the planning process because you just don't think about it.
That's a good point. So maybe on the topic of ways to prepare and ultimately try to lower the cost, a lot of parents that I talk to bring up what almost seems like a painful word, the FAFSA, right? Yeah. So as far as the FAFSA is concerned, it obviously can feel overwhelming. I'm sure you get that from the people that you help. What are maybe some tips for completing it accurately, and if there's anything to avoid from a timing standpoint for maybe missing out on some financial aid?
The best part is that it's actually easier than it used to be.
Okay.
The federal government
Easier than when we went to school?
Yes, the federal government actually did something right. They did FAFSA simplification a few years ago. They implemented it in stages over multiple years. 24-25, this current year that we're finishing up, was the first year that it was in full effect, and it dropped the FAFSA from over 100 questions to about 40.
Wow.
It's significantly shorter. It's much less intimidating than it used to be, but it's still 40 questions about your finances. So it's still intimidating. The tips that I would give students is, one, do it early.
Yeah.
It opens October 1st of every single year of their senior year. Fill it out in October. Even if you're not sure where you're going to go, you can add multiple schools to your FAFSA. You can go back and add another one if you want to later on. Fill it out in October. Do it early. A lot of schools prioritize first come, first serve, especially for need-based grants programs like work study, like federal work study. A lot of schools don't have funding for everybody, so they prioritize students who submitted early. And
you just said a lot of that can be first come, first serve.
A lot of it,
which is crucial. Then if you're looking for assistance, get it done in October.
Exactly. Just be prepared. Have all your tax information, your social security card, your parents' tax information, social security information. All of that stuff is going to be necessary when you complete a FAFSA. And also, there is something called the tax information is required on a FAFSA, but it will link to your IRS. It will link you directly to your tax information in the IRS. That now is a requirement. It used to be optional. It made it easier. Now it's required by the federal government. If a student doesn't use that data retrieval tool, they're not eligible for federal aid.
Okay.
It's the safest, securest, fastest way to get your tax information into your FAFSA. So just do it.
So it almost sounds like maybe everybody's situation is different, right, Jonathan?
For sure.
But it sounds like maybe plan this out and make it a family affair one evening. Making sure, hey, everybody's got their tax information, everybody's got their income, everybody has all the things that they need, and let's just all sit down together as a family and get this done.
Right. And if it's a child and their parents are still married, only one parent has to complete it.
Okay.
If you have a child, their parents are, they filed separately, they both have to do it. Okay. So it is very, each student, each family might be different.
That's good. That's good information there. So you kind of alluded to this a little bit, but maybe let's go a little bit deeper. Walk us through the different types, if you can, of institutional aid and scholarships for UA Little Rock, what they offer, and how do students actually go out and find those to apply for them? The
best part about especially our incoming freshman scholarships is they don't have to apply for them. Wow. Once they apply for admission to the university, that functions as their scholarship application.
That's pretty slick.
It's breaking down barriers. Let's make this as easy as possible with as few barriers as we possibly can for incoming students. We have a significant first generation population, students whose parents didn't go to college. Almost over 40% of our population is Pell eligible. Our freshman class last year was almost 60% Pell eligible. So the more barriers we put in front of them, the more likely it is that they're just going to throw their hands up and say, no, I can't do this. So let's just not put the barrier up.
Right.
So any of our freshman scholarships that are great, GPA related, ACT related, they don't have to apply for them. We look at their application, we look at their high school transcript, we look at their ACT scores, and we just offer them the best scholarship that we can. Easy as that. They'll get an email that said, hey, based on your grades, you've been offered the Chancellor's Distinction Scholarship for $10,000 a year. Congratulations. We'll see you in the fall. That's as difficult as it is. We do have some other programs. Our honors program requires an application. It runs October 1st through January 15th each year. We call these mentored programs. They're smaller, more competitive. They're really, really competitive, but they're really, really good communities to be a part of, especially for students that are looking for a new community when they go to college. We also have an enormous number of community scholarships from our development office, hundreds. I think I've got 400 sitting on my desk that we've got to get awarded for the upcoming fall. Those require an application, but there's only one application. Okay. Go out, fill out an application, go to ualr.edu/match. Okay. It's our Scholarship Universe program. It's our scholarship software. Go create an account, apply. It'll apply you to almost all of our private scholarships. And of course,
that's a great infrastructure you have. Thinking about that, your incoming freshmen, admission applies them, what you've got built out applies them to everything that they could be eligible for. And then ongoing, if they go to that, what's the website again?
It's Scholarship Universe.
Okay.
But if they go to ualr.edu/match, they can apply for all of our, what we call them, private scholarships from private donors.
But just one application submits it to
for most of them. There are some that are kind of like one-offs, like art.
Sure. There's going to always be the one-offs, right?
There's always one-offs, but hundreds of private scholarships through one application.
So what you just mentioned, maybe beyond what you call the community scholarships, maybe there's a lot of other external scholarships that they could find that's outside of the university or outside of private donors for students of the university. I think you might have alluded to it. Where could they go to find that?
Go back to Scholarship Universe.
Scholarship Universe. Yep. Okay.
So one of the benefits of Scholarship Universe is there are thousands, and I'm talking thousands, maybe over 10,000 external scholarships that our vendor vets themselves and gives our students access to. We're the only ones in the state that have access to it. And I'm talking 10,000 plus external scholarships ranging from $500 a semester to $5,000 a semester. They'll be based on grades, interests, academic programs, all sorts of different scholarships from private companies all around the country, all built right there in with what are the eligibility criteria? What do you need to do to apply? It has all of that built right in.
Now, obviously, UA Little Rock is a special university, but we've got listeners with kids all throughout the country. Mm-hmm. Is Scholarship Universe agnostic to the university, or is it just specifically
this version of Scholarship Universe? There are other universities that use Scholarship Universe, but we're the only one in the state of Arkansas that uses it.
That's pretty special.
It is.
It makes it a lot easier for students to go out and actually find those, right?
And what we had hoped would happen when we purchased it, this was probably back in 2019, 2020, was we had hoped that these external scholarships would allow students to borrow less, take out less debt. And that's what we've seen. We've seen students, we have more borrowed money, but because we have more students, but students are having to borrow less on average.
That's incredible.
Yeah.
Graduate with less debt.
Yes.
And start their life a little bit ahead.
Yeah, exactly.
So as far as, in our seat at Olympus, we talk about college planning for parents and ultimately the affordability and trying to make it as affordable as possible. And one tool that comes up quite a bit is 529s.
Yep.
And we view that as a pretty powerful tool.
Mm-hmm.
So maybe can you give some high-level explanation in regards to 529s, maybe if they are valuable and if there's any misunderstandings parents or students should be aware of to avoid?
I think they're pretty straightforward, to be honest with you, and they're extremely valuable for those parents that can put the money into the accounts. From our perspective, it gets mailed to us as a payment and it gets applied to their account just like any other payment. One thing that does surprise some families is there is a maximum amount of financial aid that a student can receive in a semester and a year. Those 529 payments do impact that. But outside of that, if you can afford to put them to invest the money, especially as when the child is first born, they're a no-brainer.
Yeah. We talk about the power of compounding, right?
Yep.
And just being able to set aside a little bit of money if it's possible for families, and how that makes a big difference, especially when you think forward, what college cost when we went versus what it is today, and what it'll be 20 years from now.
Exactly. I mean, if you look at 2, 3, 4, 5% increases in tuition and fees every single year over the next 20 years.
But y'all been able to manage that, right?
We've tried
for the reasons we've talked about.
We've worked really, really hard to keep our tuition and fees as flat as we can over the last, since I've been at the university. We've had a few little increases. I think our fees for 25, 26, we increased $1. Pretty reasonable if you ask me. And that all kind of goes back to, if you're telling everybody you're trying to make the school more affordable, but then you raise tuition and fees, you're competing against yourself.
You're not putting your money where your mouth is.
Exactly.
Right? Yeah.
Exactly.
Maybe let's talk about private loans for a moment. And so, obviously families consider that. Students look to, whether it be, and I kind of call private loans also, taking out student loans. Mm-hmm. Anything, pros, cons, as far as what you see in your seat, how that impacts student aid or ultimately the students that you help guide and work mm-hmm. with?
Well, I think the first thing that students and their families need to know is student loans are a completely reasonable way to pay for college. Yep. Completely reasonable. Thousands and thousands and thousands of students do it every single year and go on and pay them off and like they're supposed to. They have a terrible reputation in the United States because we have so many students that can't afford to pay them off. And when I talk to students and their families about student loans specifically, I tell them students get themselves in trouble two different ways. One, they come to the university, they borrow, and then they drop out. You still owe that money back.
Right.
You borrowed $5,000 for your freshman year. Well, you still owe that $5,000 back. Mm-hmm. Just because you didn't finish doesn't mean that goes away. So now you're not benefiting financially from having a degree to make it easier to pay it off, but you still have to pay it off.
Right.
And second is they don't borrow responsibly. Student loans, whether it be the federal student loan program, private loans from a private bank, you don't have to borrow everything that you offer. They're there to support your education, not to buy a new PS5 or a new hot water heater, whatever it is. If you borrow responsibly, if we offer you $5,500 for a semester, but you think you can get by on $1,000 for the semester, maybe you've got a part-time job, maybe your folks are going to help a little bit with groceries, you can only borrow $1,000 and you only have to pay back $1,000. And if you get a month into the semester, 2 months into the semester and be like, maybe I need a little bit more, you can come back to the financial aid office and you can take out a little bit more.
Yeah.
It's a completely reasonable way to pay for school. I like to tell people almost all of us at some point in our lives will go to a car lot and finance a brand new car and not think twice about it. And that car starts depreciating in value immediately.
The second you drive off the lot.
The second. Your education doesn't do that. If you look at this and you look at student loans as an investment in yourself and your future, it's a lot easier to stomach. Borrow responsibly, finish your degree. There'll be a payment plan.
That's actually a great analogy because most people in America borrow to obtain a vehicle, right?
A vehicle, a cell phone, any number of things.
Right. But those are all depreciating assets mm-hmm. where education is appreciating.
Yep.
That's actually well said. I'm going to steal that from you.
Go for it. It's all yours.
So how does, obviously you and the people that work with you on your team, how does your office help students manage their account throughout the year, whether that be billing or, like you said, coming back to the financial aid office if they need more? And what should students do if they kind of hit a financial snag mid-semester?
They've got to talk to us.
Okay.
That's the biggest thing that we do with them and they need to do with us. We communicate, we over communicate with emails, with text messages, with phone calls, whether it be about their student account. Hey, you owe money, or hey, something happened with your account. You need to come talk to us. We inundate them with emails, phone calls to make sure that they have their bill paid.
Yeah.
If you don't pay your bill, you can't come back the next semester. You can't see your grades, all important things. If they hit a snag, the most important thing is to come talk to us first. Before you make any rash decisions, come talk to us first. We have something on campus called the care team. This is one of those services that we talked about earlier. What the care team does is it takes a referral from a student, says, hey, I'm struggling financially. I'm not sure I can continue. I'm thinking about dropping out. Hold on, don't do that yet. Let's get you to financial aid. And then I can walk you through what options you have. Do they have some hardship money they can give you? Can you borrow a little bit more money? Is there a private scholarship that they can offer you? Let's do that before you take the step to drop out.
Right.
But if you drop first, then we can't help. So the most important thing is to go ask questions. We can't help you if we don't know. You need help.
It sounds like it goes back to being proactive and just communicating openly, right?
Right, exactly.
And the fact that there is help, right? There's help for people to explore all options.
Right, and it's completely anonymous. You fill out a form, nobody knows, your buddies don't know, and you can get the help that you need. It can be, whether it be financial, mental, physical, there's somebody there. From a financial perspective, there's always something that we can help with, whether it be through my office, through student accounts. There's always somewhere that we can go, whether it be a payment plan, which I think most of our students take advantage of, but there's always something we can do to help a student.
It's just great services that you all provide. Looking ahead, are there any kind of upcoming changes in financial aid rules, tuition models, state funding, anything kind of on the horizon?
Ooh, well,
is that a loaded question?
I mean, yeah, a little bit. Interesting timing with the President Trump's big, beautiful bill. It was loaded with higher ed kind of updates, if you will. The bill that the House passed was heavy with financial aid impacting changes. Most of them, I would argue, as somebody who is out trying to help students afford college, especially with our population, I thought most of them were going to negatively impact our students.
Can you kind of give us some bullet points on that?
Sure. Some of them around Pell. Pell is the largest need-based grant the federal government offers. They were going to change full-time enrollment from 12 hours to 15 hours. So they were going to make students take more hours to get the aid that they were eligible for. So you're talking about students that are probably first generation. Maybe they were on the fence about college. You're going to make them take additional hours that they might not be successful in. I don't see that as a positive. Some of the other things, they were taking out some of the student loan programs. One of them that actually did pass in the Senate, it's called the Graduate Plus Loan. It is specifically for grad students, for med students. For us, it's graduate, our Clinton School of Public Service, and our Bowen Law School. We have over 400 students that take out a plus loan that totals over $4.25 million each year. That is ending. Now all those students have to find a new way to pay for their education. What else was there? There were a lot of kind of small little pieces of that bill that were significant too. They were attacking very, very expensive schools around the country, but were going to negatively impact students that have the most need around the country. Luckily, the Senate didn't include them in their bill, so we kind of got off easy. We took a big old sigh of relief last week that it was not as impactful as we had expected it to be. But there are some programs that are just ending, not now. We have a year to communicate with students to help them plan. The Grad Plus loan students are going to be able to finish their program with the Grad Plus loan. So if they're already in their program, they can continue to receive it until they finish. They've changed how much students can borrow. So with student loans from the federal government, there are annual limits and aggregate limits. So what you can borrow over the course of your entire education, those are all changing. So that impacts students. There was a lot.
Which just kind of goes back to how students and parents need to leverage your office, right? With obviously not only the cost and what's out there for scholarships, but obviously all the legislation changes that are coming down the pike.
Right. It's important to leverage us for things like that, for legislative updates, but also how to leverage different places to get aid. The only place that you're going to find out about all those different opportunities is in our office, whether it be institutional aid, private scholarships, federal aid, state aid. I mean, you talk about the lottery scholarship, it's about to be a $17,000 scholarship, free money for an Arkansas resident to go to a 4-year school.
Wow.
It's a significant amount of money that all you have to do is apply for. And if you meet the academic requirements, that's $17,000, $17,000 plus or more scholarship dollars towards your education.
That's incredible.
Yeah.
That's honestly special.
Yeah.
Let's maybe flip the script for a second. We talked a lot about hopefully parents and students and aspiring students got a lot of value out of that. But maybe let's talk about, obviously you leveraged, what you call the community scholarships or the kind of community offerings. For people that are out there that are philanthropic and want to donate for higher education, can you share a little bit about how your office can help out and ultimately opportunities that are available?
We have a wonderful Office of Development.
Okay.
That is not under my control. But we have what I'm not going to say their name exactly the way I'm supposed to, but our Office of Development and Advancement does all of that kind of gift agreements on how they want the money to, if you're going to donate money, we're going to let you tell us how you want it to be used. What students do you want us to give it to? Do you want it to be need based? Do you want it to be academic based? Do you want it to be, if you're in construction, do you want it to go to students that are in a construction program? All of those things can be done. If you have one, I'm not going to say demographic, but if there is a group of students that you want to focus on to help, all those things can be worked out with development.
Well, I appreciate you highlighting that, Jonathan. Anything else you want to highlight about UA Little Rock or ultimately your office?
Well, I think I'd go back to what I said earlier. I think we've put a significant amount of focus on affordability because we think it's important to students and their families. For my office, the important thing is to ask questions. Ask us questions. We don't know what you don't know until you ask us.
Yeah.
If you don't come to us and ask, then you're in the dark and we're in the dark. We don't know how to help you. So that's really important for my office. And at UA Little Rock, we've put our foot forward for affordability. We're focusing a lot on access now. How can we break down barriers before students even get to school, whether it be waiving our $40 application fee. We do that a lot. How can we make the application process seamless for students and their families? How can we make it go faster? We've launched a direct admissions program where we partner with local school districts. And when a student applies, it's about 7 questions. It's name, social, address, and are you a felon? And we admit them. We have access to their we pull their transcript from the state and we admit them. We can do it in 24 hours. Instead of waiting for a high school to send us their transcript, we do it all for them. We're launching a transfer concierge program for transfer students where we will offer them the opportunity to give us the ability to pull their transcript from other schools. We will foot that bill for them. Transcripts can cost anywhere from $3 to $12. If a student there are students that can't afford a $12 transcript, especially if they need to do it twice. Well, we'll do that for you. We'll foot the bill for the $12 twice. We'll do that for you. We're trying to break down those little barriers that could stop a student from moving on with their education.
Small things stack up.
Small things stack up. And from my perspective, as someone who also works in enrollment management, it's working. As we've seen record enrollment over
Proof's in the pudding, right? From exactly how you described, enrollment has continually gone up.
It has. And as we continue to do good things, and investment in the university continues to happen. We just finished a $12 million capital improvement project on campus. It's beautiful. If you haven't seen the new Trojan Way, it's awesome. Those investments will continue and enrollment will continue to go up. A lot of really positive momentum.
Well, that's exciting. Well, Jonathan, thank you for coming on the podcast and sharing this valuable insight. And hopefully, listeners, you ultimately walked away with some good information. And if you have any questions, obviously, if you are enrolled or consider enrolling in UA Little Rock, you should definitely reach out to Jonathan and his team. And we will see you on the next episode. Thank you.
All opinions expressed on the podcast by the host and guests are solely their own opinions and do not reflect the opinion of Olympus Wealth Strategies or Uptick Partners, a registered investment advisor. This podcast is for educational purposes only and is not legal advice and should not be relied upon as a basis for any decisions. The investments discussed on this podcast may not be suitable for all investors and involve risks that should be carefully considered. Listeners are encouraged to consult with a qualified financial advisor before making any investment decisions. Certain investments may require specific investor qualifications, which not all individuals may meet. Any funds or companies discussed are not a recommendation or endorsement. Guests in the podcast might be actual clients, but are not compensated to be on the show, and their experiences are not representative of all relationships, which might differ substantially.